She promised her dying mother only one thing: never sell this cabin. When a stranger arrived with a ring hidden for 30 years, she finally understood the heartbreaking reason why.
Subscribe to Wild Sky Stories' new emotional tales every day.
The Colorado mountains held secrets in every shadow, stories in every stream, and memories carved into every ancient pine tree that reached toward the endless sky. Among these towering giants stood a small cabin weathered by decades of harsh winters and blazing summers, its wooden walls darkened by time but standing proud against the wilderness that surrounded it. Josephine Whitmore had lived in this cabin for 27 years, since the day her mother placed her infant body in a cradle near the stone fireplace and whispered promises of love and protection. Now at 27, Josephine remained, though her mother had passed 3 winters ago, leaving behind nothing but memories, a worn leather journal, and instructions to never sell the cabin to anyone, no matter what price they offered. She remembered her mother's words clearly, spoken through labored breaths during her final hours. The cabin was more than wood and stone. It was a promise, a monument to something Josephine never fully understood. Her mother had spoken of love that transcended circumstance, of choices made for the wrong reasons, and of regret that followed her through every season of her life. But the details remained locked away, buried with the woman who had raised her alone in this remote corner of the world. The morning sun filtered through the handmade curtains as Josephine prepared for another day of solitude. She fed the chickens behind the cabin, drew water from the well her mother had insisted was the sweetest in all of Colorado, and tended to the small garden where vegetables grew despite the challenging climate. Her life was simple, perhaps lonely by some standards, but it was hers, and she cherished every moment spent in the home her mother had loved so desperately. The sound of horse hooves approaching broke the peaceful silence that Josephine had grown accustomed to. Visitors were rare, and she instinctively moved toward the rifle mounted above the fireplace, though she knew she would never use it against another soul. Her mother had taught her compassion above all else. Even when the world showed her none, a man appeared through the trees, riding a chestnut mare with careful precision. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his worn hat. His face carried the weathered look of someone who had spent years under the unforgiving western sun. Yet there was something gentle in his eyes, something that made Josephine lower her guard, despite her natural caution. He stopped several yards from the cabin, removing his hat in a gesture of respect that surprised her. Most men who wandered this far into the mountains carried arrogance like armor, but this stranger seemed different, almost hesitant. "My name is Samuel Hartwell," he called out, his voice carrying across the distance between them. "I mean no harm. I have been searching for this cabin for many months." Josephine stepped onto the porch, her arms crossed over her chest in a protective gesture. "Whatever you are selling, I have no interest. Whatever you are buying, I have nothing to offer. This land is not for sale." Samuel dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible as he approached the fence that surrounded the property. He studied the cabin with an intensity that puzzled her, his eyes moving across every detail as though memorizing the structure. "I am not here to purchase anything," he said quietly. "I am here because my father spoke of this place every day of his life. He built this cabin with his own hands. Many years ago." The words struck Josephine like a physical blow. She gripped the porch railing to steady herself, her mind racing through every story her mother had told her, searching for any mention of the man who had constructed their home. Her mother had always said the cabin was built by someone who loved deeply, but left without explanation, someone whose name she refused to speak. "Your father built this cabin?" Josephine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Samuel nodded, reaching into his saddlebag and withdrawing a worn leather pouch. He held it carefully, as though it contained something precious beyond measure. "My father passed last spring. Before he died, he made me promise to find this place and deliver what he kept hidden for nearly 30 years. Josephine's hands trembled as she watched the stranger approach the porch steps. She should have sent him away, should have honored her mother's instructions to trust no one who came seeking the cabin. But something in his demeanor, something in the way he handled that leather pouch with such reverence, told her that this moment had been destined long before either of them drew their first breath. "Your father," she began, struggling to form the question that burned in her heart. Who was he? His name was Thomas Hartwell. He was a carpenter by trade, but his true gift was loving someone he could never have. He spent his entire life mourning a choice he made when he was young and foolish, a choice that separated him from the only woman he ever loved. The pieces began falling into place in Josephine's mind, creating a picture that both broke and healed her heart simultaneously. Her mother had loved someone before coming to this cabin, someone she spoke of only in whispered prayers when she thought Josephine was sleeping. The name Thomas had escaped her lips more than once, always followed by tears and the soft refrain of a lullaby Josephine knew by heart. "My mother," Josephine said slowly, her voice thick with emotion. Her name was Eleanor. Samuel's composure cracked at the mention of the name. He closed his eyes briefly, drawing a deep breath before opening them again, and Josephine saw moisture gathering at the corners of his gaze. "Eleanor," he repeated reverently. "My father spoke her name every single day. He built this cabin for her, planning to bring her here as his bride, but circumstances tore them apart before they could begin their life together. His family forbade the marriage because she had nothing to offer but her heart, and he was too young and weak to fight for what he wanted. By the time he found the courage to return for her, she had disappeared. He searched for years, never knowing she had come here, to the home he had built for their future." Josephine felt tears streaming down her cheeks as the full weight of the revelation settled upon her shoulders. Her mother had lived in this cabin alone, raising a daughter while carrying the burden of a love story that never reached its proper conclusion. She had known that Thomas built this cabin, had known that he intended it as their sanctuary, and she had chosen to live within its walls as a monument to what might have been. She never stopped loving him, Josephine said quietly, moving down the steps until she stood mere feet from Samuel. "I found her journal after she passed. She wrote to him every day, letters she never sent, confessions she never shared. She believed he had abandoned her willingly, that he had chosen comfort over love." Samuel shook his head slowly, his jaw tight with controlled emotion. He was devastated when she vanished. He married eventually, because his family demanded it, but he never gave his wife his heart. My mother knew, and though she accepted it gracefully, the knowledge haunted our household like a ghost that would not rest. I grew up watching my father stare at this cabin's drawings, listening to him describe every detail to me as though I might someday find it. He made me memorize the location, the landmarks, everything he remembered from his youth. He wanted me to find it, to find her. "But why now?" Josephine asked, her voice breaking. "Why did he wait so long? My father was a proud man, and shame kept him paralyzed for most of his life. He believed he deserved his unhappiness, that he had earned every lonely night by choosing his family's approval over true love. It was only when death approached that he found the courage to send me here, to deliver what he could never bring himself to give her in person." Samuel opened the leather pouch with trembling hands and withdrew a small wooden box intricately carved with wildflowers and mountain peaks. The craftsmanship was exquisite, clearly made by hands that loved deeply and worked patiently to create something worthy of that love. "He made this for her," Samuel explained, holding the box toward Josephine. "Inside is a ring he crafted from gold he found in these mountains when he was building the cabin. He intended to propose with it, to place it on her finger, and promise forever. Instead, it sat in his workshop for almost 3 decades, waiting for the day he would find the courage to complete what he started." Josephine took the box gently, her fingers tracing the carved patterns that mirrored the wildflowers growing behind the cabin. She opened it slowly, revealing a simple gold band with a single small diamond that caught the morning light and scattered rainbows across her tear-stained face. For several moments, neither spoke. The weight of 2 lifetimes of regret and longing hung in the air between them, a testament to the devastating cost of choices made in fear rather than faith. She waited for him, Josephine finally said, her voice barely audible. She refused to sell this cabin because she believed he would come back someday. She told me never to let it go, never to abandon it, because it was the only proof she had that she had been loved completely, even if only briefly. Samuel stepped closer, and for the first time Josephine truly looked at him. She saw the shadow of his father in his features, the same strong jaw and gentle eyes that must have captured her mother's heart so many years ago. But she also saw something else, something that belonged entirely to him, a kindness that had been forged through witnessing his father's regret and choosing a different path for himself. "I never understood why my father lived in such sorrow," Samuel said quietly. "I never understood why he punished himself so completely for a decision made in youth. But standing here, seeing this cabin, knowing that Eleanor spent her life loving him from within these walls, I finally understand. Some loves are too powerful to survive separation. They demand union, and when denied, they consume everything in their absence." Josephine looked down at the ring in her hands, then back at the man who had traveled so far to deliver it. "Do you have family waiting for you? A wife who will wonder where you have gone?" Samuel shook his head slowly. "I never married. Watching my parents live in a loveless arrangement convinced me that I would rather face life alone than repeat their mistake. I swore that if I ever gave my heart to someone, it would be completely, without reservation or fear of consequence. I would rather remain solitary than love without courage." The confession hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Josephine felt something stirring in her heart, something that had remained dormant throughout her years of solitude, something that recognized in Samuel a kindred spirit who understood his elation and chose authenticity over companionship without connection. "My mother told me something before she died," Josephine said, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "She said that love has a way of completing itself, even when we believe it has been lost forever. She said that what was meant to happen would find its way through time and circumstance, that the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget." Samuel reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against hers, where they held the wooden box. The touch sent warmth spreading through Josephine's chest, a sensation she had never experienced but somehow recognized, as though her soul had been waiting for this exact moment since before she was born. "I believe she was right," Samuel said softly. "I believe that my father's love for Eleanor never died, that it simply transformed, passing through generations until it found another vessel, another chance to bloom." "What are you saying?" Josephine asked, though she already knew the answer, felt it resonating through every fiber of her being. "I am saying that I did not travel all this distance simply to deliver a ring. I came because something called me here, something beyond my father's dying wish. I dreamed of this cabin before I ever saw the drawings. I dreamed of a woman standing on this porch, waiting for someone she did not yet know, someone who would love her without condition or compromise. I believe I was meant to find you, Josephine. I believe our parents' love story was never meant to end in tragedy. It was meant to continue through us." The declaration should have frightened her. She had known this man for mere moments, had exchanged only a handful of sentences with a stranger who appeared from nowhere claiming connection to her past. Every rational instinct told her to proceed with caution, to protect the heart she had guarded so carefully throughout her solitary existence. But Josephine had spent 27 years watching her mother choose caution over courage, had witnessed the devastation that came from loving safely rather than loving freely. She had inherited her mother's capacity for deep emotion, But she refused to inherit her fear. She stepped closer to Samuel, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his presence. She thought of her mother writing letters that were never sent, of Thomas crafting a ring that was never given, of two souls spending decades apart when they could have spent them together. "I will never sell this cabin," she said firmly, but her voice carried warmth rather than warning. "It was built by love, maintained by love, and it will continue to shelter love for as long as it stands. If you wish to stay, if you wish to discover whether what you felt in your dreams can become reality, then stay. But know that I offer my heart completely or not at all. I have learned from my mother's sorrow that half measures in love create only suffering." Samuel's face transformed with a smile that seemed to illuminate the entire clearing. He took her hands in his, the wooden box pressed between their palms like a bridge connecting two generations of longing. "I came here prepared to deliver my father's gift and return to my empty life," he admitted. "But the moment I saw you standing on that porch, something shifted inside me. I felt as though I had finally arrived somewhere I had been traveling toward my entire existence. I will stay, Josephine. I will stay and build upon the foundation my father laid. I will complete the love story he was too afraid to finish." The ring that Thomas had made for Eleanor eventually found its place on Josephine's finger, months later, when Samuel knelt beside the well that had given them sweet water and sweeter conversation through countless shared evenings. They were married in the meadow behind the cabin, surrounded by wildflowers that matched the carvings on the wooden box that sat in a place of honor on the mantel. And the cabin that Josephine had refused to sell became not a monument to lost love, but a celebration of love recovered, transformed, and finally fulfilled. Within its weathered walls, two hearts completed what their parents had begun, proving that true love, once planted, never dies. It simply waits, patient and faithful, until the proper season arrives for its beautiful blooming.